Life can move really fast sometimes, and things around us are constantly changing. And sometimes things just don't work out the way that we wanted them to. No matter how many times you moved or how long you've lived in the same place, you never really know what the next chapter in your life will bring. And a lot of Americans constantly move in order to find the perfect state for them. Most Americans are moving because they want a better life. In fact, there is a lot of information about which states people leave and which ones people move to. Most of the time, jobs seem to be the main reason for people moving, but other opportunities and quality of life certainly are big factors as well. But which states are people leaving? Which states are people trying to get out of? Well, stick around because we're going to go over the top 10 states that people are leaving. So for each state, we're going to give you the percent of people that are moving away. So if I say 70% of the moves are outward, that means 30% of the moves are people coming to that state. So if there's 1,000 moves in total, 70% would mean 700 of the moves are people leaving instead of coming. Now, with that being said, let's get right into number 10. In Nebraska's case, a lot of college-educated adults are leaving Nebraska in order to get better jobs and higher pay. They're moving on to bigger cities that have more to offer. Around 42% of the people who moved out of Nebraska said that they are leaving for a better job. Another big reason that people leave is because of the weather. And Nebraska has a lot of harsh winds, so it can make 30 degrees feel well below zero. And if the temperature gets down to the single digits and there's a strong wind, well, it can just be really hard to handle. Just imagine being out there trying to jump start your battery in the freezing cold wind. Yeah, that would make anybody move. Let's move on to number 9, Ohio. Similar to Nebraska, a lot of people that are leaving Ohio are leaving for better job opportunities. However, 28% of the people leaving Ohio are leaving because they retired. And even though Ohio has a pretty low cost of living that would be ideal for people retiring, the weather is kind of a big issue. Of course, it can get kind of cold in the winters, and in the summer, it can get up to 110 degrees with about 90% humidity. So imagine having to deal with that heat, and then just a couple months later, it's freezing cold. In Ohio, it can get below zero and stay below zero for weeks on end. And if you're retiring, that's probably not something you want to deal with. So a lot of people that are retiring and planning on moving out of Ohio are still going to try to find somewhere just as cheap as Ohio, but just a bit warmer. Talking about warm places, number 8 is Louisiana. 56.5% of the moves involving Louisiana are people leaving the state. Some residents of Louisiana are eager to leave because it gets really hot there and there aren't a lot of ways to make money. And a lot of the jobs in Louisiana revolve around oil. So if you want a good job and you don't want to work in an oil field, you're probably going to think about moving. Low pay and not a lot of opportunities doesn't make for a good place to live. Number 7 on our list, Massachusetts, there's a ton of opportunities here. But it's so expensive, and that's why it makes number 7 on our list. 57.6% of the moves involving Massachusetts are people leaving the state. Zillow says that the average home value in Massachusetts is over $545,000. And the homes are going to be even more expensive in cities like Boston. A lot of people just can't keep up with the high cost of living in Massachusetts, so that's why a lot of people are leaving. And a lot of the rents there are constantly rising, so it can be pretty hard for all the college students that live there to find somewhere to actually live that's affordable. Well, cost of living is not a problem for number 6 on our list, Detroit, Michigan. 57.7% of the moves involving Michigan are going outward. Yeah, unlike Massachusetts, Michigan has a really low cost of living. And a lot of people think of Michigan as the center of the American auto industry. Or at least it was the center of the American auto industry. And yeah, another state with terrible weather in the winter. So of course that's gonna force some people to leave. But hey, if you're looking for a really cheap house, I mean, there's plenty of them in Detroit because people are leaving. I talk a lot more about Michigan and their cheap houses in the video I did on the cheapest houses in America. I'll put that in the description if you're interested. Alright, moving on to number 5, California. What's not to like about California? It's home to Disneyland, Hollywood, Silicon Valley. But I mean, those things are cool if you can afford to pay for any of them. 59.3% of the moves are people leaving California. California has expensive taxes, expensive cost of living. Pretty much you're going to be paying a lot of money for like everything there. It's just really expensive. But not only are high costs a factor, a lot of people leaving California said they wanted to be closer to their family. Moving on to number 4, Connecticut. 60.1% of the moves involving Connecticut are people leaving. High taxes and expensive housing make it hard for people to live here. So it's a little similar to California, at least in that aspect. And about 1/3 of the people leaving the state are saying they're leaving because they want to retire. In Connecticut, unlike a lot of other states, you have to pay taxes on all of your retirement income. And that's even including Social Security. And a lot of the other residents have to deal with high property taxes. And of course, we can't leave out the weather, another state with terrible winter weather. Who wants to deal with it getting like dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon during the winters? Moving on to number 3. Well, this one might surprise you. Because number 3 is New York. 63.1% of the moves are people leaving. Back during the pandemic, residents of the Empire State left their cramped, overcrowded apartments for more open, green spaces. Back in 2020, New York would have been number 2 on this list. But now that the pandemic has slowed down a little bit, some people are staying in New York. A lot of people are still leaving, but a little less. Alright, moving on to number 2, Illinois. 62.7% of the moves here are people leaving, which is 4% higher than New York. I know it sounds cliche at this point, but weather does have a little bit to do with it. But even more than that, there's just not a lot of good jobs outside of Chicago. And if you do live in Chicago, it's kind of expensive. So with Illinois, you really only have 2 options: living in a city that doesn't pay that great, or living in Chicago and it just being expensive and a little cramped. Yeah, so a lot of people are leaving Illinois, but not as many as number 1 on our list, which is New Jersey. 70.5% of the moves involving New Jersey are people leaving the state. And this is actually the 4th year in a row that New Jersey has had the record for most people leaving their state. Zillow says that New Jersey has some of the highest property taxes in the country, and that the average home value is around $430,000. One user on Reddit said it has too many people, too many rules, and just too many taxes. Even though people in New Jersey do make a lot of money. And New Jersey is actually on the top 10 richest states list, but apparently that money isn't enough to keep people from leaving New Jersey. People keep leaving in droves, and it doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. Did your state make this list? Let me know in the comments below. And are you planning on moving anytime soon? And if so, which state are you thinking about? If you enjoyed the video and learned something you didn't know before, please subscribe, it would mean a lot. And I have a lot more content like this on the way. So until next time, peace.